What if I told you that bullying isn't just something America condemns, it's something America often celebrates? Think about it. The loudest voice in the room, the kid everyone fears, the CEO who crushes the competition, the drill instructor who humiliates recruits, the politician who doesn't back down. Again and again, confidence and cruelty become difficult to separate, and somewhere along the line, being intimidating became admirable. Now, before anyone reaches for the comments, this isn't about saying America is uniquely evil, nor is it about politics. Every country has bullies. But the question is different. Does American culture reward bullying more openly than many other societies? Today we're going to look at Hollywood, schools, colleges, the military, business, and even international diplomacy to ask whether bullying has become more than bad behavior. Has it become part of the national mythology? Hollywood has spent decades telling us what American high schools look like, and one character almost never disappears: the bully. He's bigger, louder, usually richer, often more athletic, sometimes the captain of the football team. He humiliates weaker students, mocks intelligence, ridicules kindness, uses fear to climb the social ladder. What's fascinating isn't simply that bullies exist, it's that audiences almost expect them. The bully has become an essential ingredient of the American coming-of-age story. Of course, these films usually end with justice. The underdog wins. The bully gets embarrassed. Everyone cheers. But notice something? Hollywood keeps returning to the same character. Why? Because audiences immediately recognize him. He's believable. Because he reflects something people have repeatedly experienced. Even outside fiction, surveys have shown bullying remains a persistent issue in American schools, despite decades of anti-bullying campaigns. That raises an uncomfortable question. If bullying remains so familiar, is it because it reflects something larger than individual behavior? Bullying doesn't disappear after graduation. In some cases, it becomes tradition. College hazing has existed for generations. New members are humiliated, ordered around, sleep-deprived, forced into dangerous situations, sometimes assaulted, occasionally killed. And yet, participants frequently defend it. I went through it. It builds character. It creates loyalty. It's just tradition. Notice what's happening? The victim eventually becomes the perpetrator. The abused becomes the next abuser. The cycle continues. Because suffering becomes proof of belonging. Many universities have introduced strict anti-hazing rules, yet every year new scandals emerge, which suggests that social acceptance can be more powerful than official policy. Few images are more familiar than the screaming drill sergeant. Movies, television, comedy sketches, we've seen them countless times. The recruit is shouted at, insulted, corrected publicly. Individual identity disappears. Everyone becomes part of the unit. Now, it's important to make a distinction. Military training exists to prepare people for extraordinary circumstances. Its goal is discipline, cohesion, and survival. Professional militaries also have strict standards against abusive conduct beyond legitimate training. But culturally, the image of relentless intimidation has become iconic, even entertaining. Many people laugh, quote famous movie lines, celebrate the toughest instructors. Again, the question isn't whether discipline is necessary, it's whether aggressive dominance has become something Americans admire in itself. Corporate America often rewards confidence. That's understandable. Leadership requires decisiveness. But sometimes, confidence becomes intimidation. The demanding boss, the executive who humiliates employees, the manager who believes fear creates productivity. Popular culture even coined phrases like killer instinct, take no prisoners, crush the competition. Business language itself sometimes borrows the vocabulary of conflict. And when success follows, aggressive behavior can become difficult to separate from effective leadership. The same questions appear internationally. Recent American administrations, including the current one, have often employed hard bargaining, public pressure, tariffs, and strong-arm negotiation tactics in pursuit of policy goals. Supporters argue this demonstrates strength. Critics argue it resembles coercion. Sometimes these tactics achieve concessions. Sometimes they backfire. But this isn't really about only one president. Different administrations have projected American power in different ways, often combining diplomacy, economic pressure, military strength, and public messaging. The broader question is cultural. Why do Americans admire leaders who dominate negotiations? Why is strength so often associated with being willing to intimidate? Perhaps because America has historically celebrated decisive winners, and winning sometimes overshadows how victory was achieved. Just for a moment, stop and ask yourself this. How has America treated NATO in this administration? How has America treated allies in Europe? Then ask, how has America treated its nearest neighbours, Canada and Mexico? There are always justifications, and I'm sure some of you have already lined them up already on the above. But there is a common theme here, and sticking our head in the sand and pretending we aren't the playground bullies is extremely ostrich-like. Friendships, even international ones, based on strength and bullying, are far from a solid foundation. And just like in the Hollywood movies and the bully gets his comeuppance, those around him simply laugh, point fingers, and ridicule. Why do we think this wouldn't happen on a world stage? The loud American was always part of how Americans were seen on the world stage, bragging and almost obnoxiously so. But it was balanced with friendship, reliability, and yes, care. Foreign policies shift from administration to administration, but do you still believe that we are seen as reliable friends that care? We've withdrawn from the World Health Organization, slammed the United Nations as being weak and ineffective, and cut funding dramatically to health initiatives, while removing funding entirely for international peacekeeping activities. We've also dramatically cut funding for AIDS prevention across the African continent. Does this sound like a friend that cares? We've downgraded the Environmental Protection Agency and withdrawn from the Climate Change Accord, actions seen by almost all other nations as destructive to the planet and global climate change. Does this sound like a friend that cares? So in conclusion, none of this means America is uniquely cruel. Far from it. America has also produced extraordinary movements for civil rights, compassion, volunteerism, charity, innovation, and community. Those deserve recognition too, but every culture has shadows. Perhaps America's shadow is its complicated relationship with dominance. Sometimes confidence becomes arrogance. Competition becomes humiliation. Leadership becomes intimidation. And strength becomes bullying. Maybe the real question isn't, does America have bullies? Every nation does. Perhaps the better question is, when does society stop merely tolerating bullying and start rewarding it? That's a question worth asking, not because America is beyond hope, but because every culture becomes stronger when it can recognize its own blind spots. If you enjoyed this exploration of psychology, culture, and history, subscribe for more thought-provoking discussions, and let me know in the comments, where do you think the line lies between strength and bullying? Because they're not always the same thing. Thanks again for watching.